wherever you find your podcast. So, Mina, thanks for hanging out with us for a little bit. Let's start here. Like the Rams, I mean, clearly the NFL loves the Rams. They've put them in a position with 7 primetime games. Look, I look at that as they feel like they're the team people want to watch the most. I think that's the obvious take to have. But is there anything else to kind of gleam off of that when they give them that many games in primetime?
I think your first instinct is the right one. People want to watch this team. I think people think this is the best team in the NFL or one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the NFL. A lot of household names now with not just Matthew Stafford, but Puka Nacua and Jared Verse on defense. The Rams also, I think, going all in terms of like the trades to add Trent McDuffie. And there's just a level of intrigue around this team and an assumption, I think, that every game is going to matter with them deep into the season as they fight for, playoff seeding, especially with Seattle, of course, the reigning champs. So a lot of excitement around them. And then also, the Super Bowl in LA only adds to that, getting to showcase that beautiful stadium in prime time that we're all going to see in February. I imagine is an added plus as well.
There's no way any coach loves to have to fly halfway across the world to play their first game, right? Like, I know Sean has been he said the right things on television yesterday with Laura Rutledge and Peter Schrager. Kyle Shanahan has not been as kind about his international experiences, but there's no way anybody likes that for week 1.
Yeah, I mean, especially not the players, right? It's especially as the NFL adds more international games. I think managing that becomes such a monumental task for these NFL teams, who already, as you know, have folks who work full time on the logistics, not just of getting people from point A to point B, but also adjusting their weekly schedules, training regimens. The health aspect of this is paramount. And then you just continue to throw more and more in there. And then further and further distances, it only amplifies the difficulty level for everyone involved.
I mean, the schedule in prime time too, though, also signifies how difficult the schedule will be, because you look at this, this list of teams that they're playing, and when they're playing them, there are several stretches of like, holy crap, they're going to be in a dogfight every week.
And that's the NFC West, right? I mean, so on my show, Meantime Show featuring Lenny this week, we did top 10 coaches in the NFL, and encourage folks to go check it out, watch on YouTube, but I'll spoil it. We gave McVay number 1. We gave Mike McDonald number 2. We gave Kyle Shanahan number 3.
Wow.
So 3 of the top coaches in the NFL are all in the same division. How crazy is that? Also, how much does it stink if you're a Cardinals fan, right?
They're up the creek, man. They got a long way to go. Who the hell knows who's even going to start at quarterback for them? Is it going to be Brissett? Yeah. Is it going to be Minshew? Is it going to be my guy Carson Beck? They got a lot of things to figure out there in Cardinal land. When you look at the schedule, their schedule in particular, is there a spot that you say, ooh, that is, of all the spots, and they have difficult ones, that to me is the trickiest part of them all?
You mean the Rams in particular?
Correct, yes.
Off the top of my head, the Seattle games being so close, I'm looking at it right now. That's why. I mean, it's the gauntlet at the end. Like, good Lord. Packers, Chiefs, Niners, Cowboys, Seahawks, Bucks, Seahawks again. That's an insane level of difficulty. There's not a cupcake on that one. I know Cowboys maybe aren't, regarded quite with the Seahawks and Niners right now, but like that's an improving team. The Packers are always very challenging. We'll see. The Chiefs, I think, will be better at the end of the year than the beginning of the season, right, with Mahomes coming off the injury. So I just think that the way they're finishing is so hard.
What is the expectation for Mahomes? What is there a timeline that you know of, or? Well,
we were talking about this on live the other day, and coming out of the language coming out of the Chiefs suggests they think he's going to be ready earlier than not, but I also think they don't want to push him. And he, pushes himself harder than anyone. And he's been talking about, what he wants to do this summer to ramp up and be ready for week 1. But, I have to think there's some hesitation. However, the Chiefs launching, I think Monday night, right, is like from the jump at Arrowhead Stadium, it almost, you don't want to say that adds pressure to the organization, and I don't think that they'll feel it, but it does feel a little bit like pressure to see him out there.
Is there a team that you think can sneak up on us, that you look at their schedule, you look at their roster, and you say to yourself, maybe this team could be in the hunt, could sneak into a playoff spot?
Well, it's not really about schedule per se, but I think the Vikings are an interesting one to watch because folks, maybe kind of flew under the radar that even with close to the worst, if not the worst quarterback play in the league last season, they were still sniffing 500 because of how good the rest of the team is and how good the defense was. So if Kyler Murray, and I've been saying this ever since they added him, is even average for Minnesota, that should be a playoff team based on what we've seen the last few years. And I think he's perfectly capable of that.
Is J.J. McCarthy good?
The early indications are pretty tough. I mean, for him to come back from what he's shown so far and take another leap would be, I wouldn't say unprecedented. And you think about Jared Goff's first season and whatnot, right? But I actually don't think even that's comparable. It would be pretty unique for a quarterback to have that difficult of a start and then come back and end up living up to that first-round potential.
Do you think they regret the Sam Darnold thing?
I do. I will say, though, I think they do, but they regret probably like as part of the piece of choosing McCarthy, right? Because I don't think, like, if they had gone with a different quarterback, I don't think they would regret moving on from Sam. You know what I mean? Like,
right. No, I get
if
you.
they had drafted someone else. And I think, it just shows the challenge of that quarterback draft we're going to look back at, and it's, May and Daniels and Williams, and they all look awesome. Yeah. And it just shows you how rare it is to find more than 3 starting quarterbacks in the first round. Bo Nix, right, of course, as well.
Right, yeah.
He's had success.
Yeah. Speaking of Bo Nix, what is his timeline?
So that was one I just checked up on because, I think the Broncos are another team where everyone thinks they can and should be competing for the Super Bowl. All indications are that, his injury, not terribly severe, and that there's expectations he should be back, if not week 1, very early in the season. Okay. So that's but his movement ability is a big part of his game. So you want to see him moving with comfort as well. But I don't think it was a terribly serious injury.
Oh, okay, cool. Mina Kimes hanging out with us here. So I like to poop on the Raider fans. I mean, it's kind of easy. It is low-hanging fruit. There's a lot of them in L.A. I have a lot of fun with them because what ends up happening is, and I think it could be similar this year, where they have like a decent start to the season, right? And then they get all excited and they're like, oh my God, we're back. This is it. We're going to make the playoffs this year. And then like it falls off a cliff. And I look at their schedule and I look at their team and I know they've made improvements to their offensive line, right? They've made improvements to their linebacking core. I still just don't think they're good enough. How do you view the Raiders heading into 2026?
I think we'll see some improvement, but I share some of your concerns about the roster, particularly offensively. Yes, they signed Tyler Linderbaum, excellent center, really smart, but this offensive line was wretched last season. Granted, they were missing players for, a lot of the year, Colton Miller and whatnot, but still, that's a concern of mine. And the receiving group, they didn't really add to. I mean, they signed Jalen Naylor, but I thought for sure that would be something they would look to augment in the draft, and they did not. And I think, it's hard because I do like their draft and a lot of the players they added, but boy, I really feel like with the young quarterback, Fernando Mendoza, they could have added another receiver. And then defensively, I think, again, we will see improvements. They've definitely, you allude to the investment in the linebacker group, getting Crosby's back, the back end. But, there are still some holes on this roster that I think keep them out of contention in the immediate future.
You mentioned Mendoza, and obviously I'm going to have an affinity for him, my Cuban compatriot. It will probably put me in a tough position because I love him. I called a bunch of his games at Cal prior to his year at Indiana, and I got to know him a little bit, and he's so lovable. I mean, he's super dorky, which is why it's awesome he's with Kirk Cousins because they're going to be two big dorks together. But, I just look at him, and here's how I view him, and I'd love to see what you saw during the draft process and maybe what you've discussed with other people, like I think of him as a good starter, right? Like I think of him as a guy that, and this is not an exact comp, right? But I look at him as somewhere between like Sam Bradford and Joe Flacco with a little more mobility. And I think like if you put like the right pieces around a guy like that, like you're going to be good. He's going to keep the trains moving on time, etc. I just don't view him in the Caleb, Drake May, Jaden Daniels conversation. Like I don't think he's that good, but I think he's still very good. How do you view Mendoza?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of his. I thought he was pretty clearly the number one quarterback, and a worthy pick for 1-1 in the draft. I think he has similarities to Jared Goff, quite frankly, who, where if the circumstances are correct, you can get top 10 quarterback play pretty consistently. And I think Mendoza's capable of that. He has the arm talent, the accuracy, the frame, the intelligence. You alluded to like a little bit of mobility more than Goff, but that's not going to be a big part of his game. There's things he needs to work on. I mean, some of it, this has been discussed ad nauseum, but he is coming from a fairly simplified college offense, like most college quarterbacks, by the way. I think, though, to like be like Jared in the NFL, he's going to have to learn, I think, not just the understand or play action aspect of this, which we're going to see a lot of in that offense, but like some pocket movement, stepping up versus pressure instead of dropping his eyes. I think, he's going to have to learn to live over the middle of the field the way Goff does. I think he's capable of that. But I really feel like he is entirely capable of being a top 10 quarterback in the league. Now, is he ever going to be one of the 5 best in the NFL? I think it's reasonable to question that given some of the physical tools or, comps that you mentioned. But to me, I just see a very capable starter with a high floor, and I'm optimistic about him.
Yeah, I love him. I'm rooting for him. Like, I want him to do well. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Who had the best draft, in your opinion?
I was a huge fan of what the Cleveland Browns did. They came into the draft.
Lindsay's going to be super excited to hear that. Oh, my God.
They'll find a way to mess it up. It's okay.
Well, it's still not going to look good this year, right? Probably, but
yeah, don't get
it's
too
all
excited.
about setting the table for 2027. Jets kind of are in a similar boat, right? Where it's like about that 2027 quarterback. But I do think they set the table well. I mean, the investments they've made in the offensive line at the wide receiver position, doubling up with Concepcion in Boston. I think, and they already had a good draft last year with the running back and the linebacker and whatnot. So I think next year, this is actually going to be in a good team where it's in a good position. And if it's like, let's say, Arch Manning, you're looking at them and you're saying, yeah, actually, he should want to be a Cleveland Brown based on what they've done over this year and last.
Who had the best schedule release video?
I'm a big fan of the Titans one. I just watched that, which was the very like low tech. They were just stopping people on the street and pretending like they looked like NFL people, which I just think like it's a good case study for you don't actually have to spend a lot of money, and you certainly don't have to use artificial intelligence to make something that people like.
You know what? I just completely forgot to ask you about while we were talking about specific teams and just kind of whether it's their schedule, their roster, or their potential for this season. Mm-hmm. And I guess I shouldn't be too surprised. And I say this, I'm not trying to be mean about it, but the Chargers, right? Like they're almost like they're not a team we talk about enough in this town because of kind of the strangeness of how it's all unfolded for them here. But, this is another year of Jim Harbaugh, right? Like I liked what they did in the draft last year. I haven't really, gotten a chance to dive into the draft this year necessarily. But I feel like they should be good. And without Mahomes, maybe Denver takes a step back. Could this be their year to win the division?
I think the Broncos top to bottom have a better team, but the Chargers have the quarterback and then I would say the play caller. That's, to me, what gives me the most optimism about this offense taking a leap. I'm really excited to see the Mike McDaniel, Justin Herbert marriage. I think some of the investments they've made at tight end, fullback, hopefully this offensive line getting healthier. You never want to say that, knock on wood, right, about the Chargers. Yeah. But I think there's real potential for the offense to take a leap forward. And I think even if the defense takes a leap back or a step back, with the loss of their defensive coordinator, Jesse Minter, who's now the head coach of the Ravens, if the offense is more explosive, it might be able to compensate for that.
All right, now that we're done with the football, let me ask you a question because when I first came to ESPN, 13 years ago, I used to do First Take, and this is when Stephen A. and Skip were doing First Take regularly, and I remember I would walk in to a specific green room or sometimes hell even the bathroom, right? And Skip would be in there kind of working his takes, right, and focusing on his battle with Stephen A. on First Take. Now, when you go on Celebrity Jeopardy, are you going in there trying to psych people out? Like, what is happening backstage before you hit out there? Are you getting them off their game before you go in there to dominate?
You just got to play your own game, man. I will say they let you do a rehearsal round right before the game, and that's kind of your opportunity to show people not really that you know things per se, but that you're dialed into the buzzer. But yeah, so that would be part of it. I have the championship tonight. It airs at 8 p.m. Pacific for those on ABC here.
Nice.
And I had a very challenging competitor, Ike Barinholtz, who famously won his season and won a regular Jeopardy game as well. And so, if it was important for me to show him in our rehearsal that I could go toe-to-toe with him on the buzzer.
Oh, right, because the buzzer is the key to all of it, right? You got to buzz in. I mean, you can know the answer, but you got to beat him. Yeah.
Do you just have to sit there with your thumb on it, like clicking it over and over and over? Because that's what it looks
What
like.
is the technique on the buzzer?
If you buzz in too early, you get locked out. So you actually have to be very precise about when you – and the thing that I always tell people is you have to figure out what works for you. So for me, I found that I was able to buzz in when Ken Jennings' voice ended as opposed to the lights going on. And then once you figure that out, you just have to be a metronome and stick with it.
Wow. Look at that. I mean, look at the strategy. It's like Mina's trying to throw into a tight window, against like one of the best defenses in the league. She's figuring this out. All right. So tonight on ABC, the championship round, and then the spelling bee. Now, listen, you've probably won a lot more spelling bees than I did. I did win one in third grade. I lost in second grade with the word receive, which was very upsetting to me. I did come back and win in third grade because I was not going to let the I before E or whatever get me the second time around. Tell me about the spelling bee experience because I'm super pumped up and excited about this for you.
George, it's so insane? Receive was the word I won with in my second grade spelling.
No way! I lost on that one. Yes, that's crazy.
We weren't in the same B for those. I actually it was San Pedro. So wow. I don't know if folks knew that, but I went to I lived in LA as a kid. I lived in Fort MacArthur in San Pedro.
Wow.
So the spelling bee is the end of May. It's on Ion, but you can also watch it on spellingbee.com. It's May 27th and 28th. Hosting the semifinals that first night, and the second night are the finals. I've been preparing for it, learning a little bit more about the kids. We got a real killer here in LA, I'll tell you right now. Kid who made it to the top 10, I think even further, last year, Oliver Halkett from Silver Lake. So if you're in LA and you want a local kid to maybe back, don't bet on the spelling. If you bet on the spelling bee, you're a sick person. But you want a local kid
I'm sure there's lines on Ollie, okay? I'm sure DraftKings or FanDuel or somebody's going to have a line on him, all right?
I know. That's so bleak. But anyways, he is I watched last year's finals. I was really impressed by this kid. He is back. It's his final year, so that's one to watch from LA, Silver Lake.
All right. Oliver Halkett is what his name is?
Halkett.
Oh, Halkett. All right. So, Ollie, we're rooting for you, buddy. Mina, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you got a lot of stuff on your plate. Again, check out the Mina Kimes Show with Lenny, the podcast, and you can always catch her on NFL Live and all over the family networks. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks again.